This message today is a continuation of the attack on boards of education during the Democratic National Convention. It is for parents, but I hope that they will watch together with their children and formulate some opinions on their own. What I want parents to understand is that the system of education teaches our children that they are smarter than we are, which causes our children to be reluctant to listen to us when we are trying to advise them on what is in their best interest. Again, I will do this video in a way that it can be listened to like a podcast so that you can do other things, in hopes that those who have short attention span will listen to the video until the end. Today is Thursday, August the 22nd, 2024. And this is another installation of our attack on boards of education during the Democratic National Convention. And we are going back to LJ's high school world culture and geography textbook because, I am asserting that this is the Board of Education Bible. Again, this particular edition was published in 2017. And today I'm going to focus on Chapter 4, Section 1, Section 1.2, the media culture, and Section 1.5, citizens' rights and responsibilities. And I am going to share with you a clip from Roland Martin's coverage of the Democratic National Convention and what seems to be a message directed towards pro-Palestinians who are protesting and why they need to vote and why their vote matters, and then some other opinions about what it means to choose the correct leader when you have a significant civil and human rights issue that you would like to have addressed.
When you talk about public policy, what I get tired of people who complain about stuff and then say, well, my vote doesn't matter, when the reality is it does. If you look at what's happening Israel and Gaza, there's a stark contrast between two candidates. There's a stark contrast between Donald Trump, who will literally turn Gaza into a parking lot, versus Vice President Kamala Harris, who wants to come up with, using the leverage of the United States, to come up with a peaceful solution to stop death. To come up with a peaceful solution to stop death. To stop death. To stop death. And I'm going to say this to anybody out there who, all of you, whether you're Palestinian American, whether you're Arab American, whether you're African American, whether you're white American, and you are outside protesting, you're pushing, and you want action. Ain't one black person not understanding that. Mm-hmm. You can't talk to black folk about this because we understand about how do you put pressure. Mm-hmm. Led by Fannie Lou Hamer, Bob Moses, and others. They pushed, they pressed. But then there was a solution that was offered, one they were not happy with. Dr. King, Bayard Rustin accepted that compromise. Dr. King said, I cannot turn my back on a win today because I want to win the battle today and the war tomorrow. In Chicago in 1968, the Mississippi delegation was integrated, as was every single one. So why am I saying that? If you are somebody who is saying, I am not going to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris because of what's happening in Israel and Gaza, what is the alternative?
I want to remind you that the alternative is full disclosure and accountability. This is also called justice.
If you say, I'm going to penalize her and the Democrats, I get it, and that's your right. But what will be the alternative by that decision?
Trump.
What you have to understand, it's a binary choice. And so the question is, how do you make that decision? And who can you meet with? So I hear this all the time because I hear some of these silly people, and I really don't give a damn. Like, I don't give a shit. When somebody says, oh, you've been a shield for the party, this is very basic. If I am trying to get something passed, the first thing is, who will grant me a meeting?
What Roland has just described and is about to continue describing is a dictatorship.
Will they take my phone call? If Rebecca and Jolanda and Kwame and we were like, yo, we want to do this here, who will meet with us? Who will likely set the meeting up? Who will likely agree to the meeting? Who will likely listen to what we have to say? As opposed to somebody who won't even talk to you.
Yeah.
So part of the political process is, who do I have access to? Who do I have access to? Who do I have access to? I cannot get somebody to support what I want to do if they won't even take my phone call.
Won't give you a list.
And that's what I need us to understand. And Mark Morey will agree with this. Those of you who are considering the couch, I need you to understand the couch ain't going to feed you. The couch ain't going to supply lunch meals. The couch is not going to build roads. The couch ain't going to help you get a house, help you own a home. The couch will do none of that. And if you listen to people, and I heard some of you Negroes out there, you ain't getting enough for that vote. It is a fundamental lie. Anybody who says your vote cannot make a difference is an absolute lie. Mark?
I'd now like to share with you an excerpt from the book We the Poisoned by John Sheraton, which I have referenced in other videos. This is a segment of the introduction. He writes, I was supposed to be laser focused on the presidential campaign, but the wheels in my mind began quickly churning. The federal government would have immediately marched the Army Corps of Engineers into town if this happened an hour south of Flint in wealthier and whiter Ann Arbor. Every damn pipe would have been dug up within a few months. While the pipes were being replaced, the feds probably would make other upgrades to their city's infrastructure to boot. As Melanie and I spoke, it became clear that politicians and the media had merely checked off their respective boxes when it came to Flint. Politicians showed up at the free water distribution sites for an hour or so to score their photo ops. National media figures like Rachel Maddow descended on Flint, holding televised town halls with residents. However, within a week, they were gone. In their absence, residents were left to plead for help from the state government, the very entity that poisoned them. How could the national media apparatus do little more than quickly parachute in and out of a major American city where 100,000 people had been poisoned by their own government? TV news and legacy newspapers had all the resources in the world to keep reporters, producers, and researchers in Flint to dig in on who caused this and why. They had all the tools to report on the ongoing crisis indefinitely. A year before the 2014 Flint River switch, 3 major broadcast news networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, pocketed roughly $2 billion in advertising revenue from their nightly news programs. In 2016, when the Flint water crisis became an international scandal, Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN scored a combined $2.3 billion in profit. Yet here was a 20-something Flint resident relegated to pleading with an independent reporter to come to her city and give a damn. Meanwhile, the billion-dollar news media was chasing Trump's tweets. Where were the big-time national news anchors and investigative reporters now? Too busy doing minute-to-minute coverage of Trump's empty podium, literally, on live television 45 minutes before he arrived to his rally the next day. And then down further, he said, I appreciate the intention, but that won't rate. The MSNBC producer told me when I pitched a series on interviewing the homeless people, everyone at the network casually stepped around on their way into the studio. And like most other times, I've pitched doing a story of substance. I was met with a stop sign. It's one of the main reasons I left. All right, we are in the Board of Education Bible. for World Culture and Geography, Chapter 4, North America, Section 1, 1.2, the media culture. And keep in mind, this is what the Board of Education believes is important for our children to learn and to understand in 2 pages of this section. I also want to show you the map here where they show broadband internet access by U.S. county and the percentage of households with a minimum of 4 Mbps availability, which is very, very slow compared to what they have available now, streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The main idea is the movement of ideas through various media has shaped communication and cultures in the United States and Canada. Mass media refers to communication that reaches large audiences. Traditionally, this meant newspapers, radio, and television. Today, mass media also includes the rapid and nearly continuous flow of information through personal electronic devices, print media to electronic media. During the 1800s, newspapers provided information that often influenced public opinion. By the 1920s, radio provided news and entertainment. It was the most important source of news during World War II. Franklin Roosevelt used radio for his fireside chats in which he shared information about the war with the American public. By this time, it was clear that mass media was a powerful tool. In the 1950s, many U.S. households acquired their first television sets, and this medium surpassed radio in its popularity as a source for news and entertainment. In 1963, the entire nation viewed film footage of the assassination of President Kennedy. So this is the introduction of trauma programming via media. In the same decade, television became an important medium for witnessing the Vietnam War, for witnessing footage, meaning somebody was out there with a camera so that you could see the vulgarity and the devastation while blood combat was actually occurring for public consumption and the protests against it. In the 1990s, new media technologies exploded in popularity. Cell phones connected people around the world, even if they were on the move. The internet, a communications network, gave people the power to access huge amounts of information from a variety of sources. It also allowed individuals to distribute their own media, such as blogs and videos, to a mass audience. I want to pause here first to say I hope the resolution of this video is better than it is as I'm recording it once it is uploaded. But I want to mention that the important point of what I've just read is who controls the narrative around the visual footage that was acquired and is available, because there is no atrocity to humanity that for some reason there was someone available to videotape in detail what happened, and why is it necessary for people to observe those kinds of things to get the point across that they need help? What kind of help do people need? That's what we need to understand, and how we need to teach our children to think about things like this in 2024. With so much information available electronically, people rely less on print publications. With so much information available electronically, people rely less on print publications, which includes books. People do not read. And that's significant because digital media can be altered. Print media cannot be altered, not nearly as conveniently as digital media. So you could have one story that comes out one day, and the very next day, small aspects of that same media could be distorted. And unless you've captured it or saved it, then you have no way to verify whether or not the information was altered or changed, which is why I started journaling to keep track of the research I was doing, because I did not want to risk losing it digitally. Global and mobile media today. Today, texting, instant messaging, and social networking allow fast and easy communication between people around the world. Much of this is done with smartphones, which combine communication and software applications into one handheld device. Media technology encourages a culture that is global or worldwide. Access to information is available from anywhere in the world. The problem, however, is that people do not have access to the same factual information at the same time. And when people do not have access to the same information at the same time, it contributes to miscommunication, which ultimately contributes to misinformation that results in people focusing on the wrong things for the wrong reason. Media technology encourages a culture that is global or worldwide. Access to information is available from anywhere in the world. Media culture forms around shared ideas or interests rather than physical location. Most technology is now mobile, which means it moves along with the people who use it. For many people, new media has entirely replaced traditional methods of communication. Let me read it again. For many people, new media has entirely replaced traditional methods of communication, which is talking to each other. Any barriers that interfere with people's desire, willingness, and capacity to communicate with each other is a tremendous problem. That is a huge barrier that requires full disclosure and accountability in 2024. Before you move on, make inferences. Why do you think mass media has such a strong influence on the culture in the United States and Canada? As a side note, I'd like to share with you a post from this morning that's aligned with the previous video where I mentioned that I was coming down with the flu or COVID. And I know the difference between the flu and a cold because it is the flu or COVID is full body, meaning that you can, not only do you have sinus symptoms and throat symptoms, but you can also feel aches and pains in your entire body. What I mentioned is that I posted on the 19th how bad the air quality is because I can tell anything over 25, I can sense it in the air, even though they say that that's a good air quality reading. A good air quality reading is 0 contaminants and pollution. That's what is a good reading. But it was particularly bad on this day, and because it has continued to get worse, I discerned that this was the initiation of another variant of COVID in this area. This is the AQI, the air quality index for today. And although the particulate matter is low, the little particles in the air that are always there, the CO contamination is extremely high, but they do not factor this into the report that they're giving of the quality of the air because it is not particulate matter, it's gas. But this is just as bad and contributes to the feeling of sickness, nausea, etc. This is information from the CDC website on the KP.3.1.1 variant of the COVID virus. And I'm sharing it so that you have an understanding of what the CDC is telling people about it, but also because I wanted you to understand something about SARS-CoV-2. The CDC says SARS, SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, is constantly changing with mutations in its genetic code accumulating over time. Some variants emerge and disappear, while others will emerge and continue to spread and may replace previous variants. Now let's look at another SAR, S-A-R, as defined by the Federal Communications Commission. Cellular phone specific absorption rate is a measure used by the Federal Communication Division to inform cell phone manufacturers on the setting for the level of radiation that is emitted from each device to ensure it remains at a healthy level. So in this case, SAR stands for specific absorption rate, which you can see here says it is the amount of radio frequency energy absorbed in the head of a user of a wireless headset. So it's the transmission of the waves to the person, whether or not you are holding the phone to your head or not, you're still going to have communication transmitted to your ear from the device. This is also from the CDC website and is on acute radiation syndrome. And they do have a video available if you would like to learn more about acute radiation syndrome to understand it more. Now, I'm sharing this with you not as a fear tactic because we're immortal and you treat it just like you do the flu because it's not new. We've been going through this for at least 100 years. And we have all kinds of remedies that we use at home to help us cope when we're coming down with a cold, whether it be a sinus cold or a head cold, or whether we're coming down with the flu. And the key is for you to continue to do that. The challenge is being able to stay at home to allow your body to adapt to whatever you're being exposed to so then it doesn't bother you anymore. Most people will tell you before we started calling it COVID and pandemic that when you get we never got a flu shot in my home. I got a flu shot one time in my entire lifetime, and I was sicker than I have ever been in my life, and so I never got one again. But what I explained to my family was that if somebody catches it, that's our immunity, because as soon as you're exposed to it, your body will respond in whatever way it's going to respond based on your level of immunity, and then it will adapt and create an immunity to it, which is why they have to keep upgrading all of the things that we're exposed to on a regular basis. So the answer is not to panic, but to trust your own body. And part of what you have to do when you are coming down with the flu and you do not have an immunity to it is to rest and allow your body to do what it does in order to adapt to whatever it is that you're being exposed to in the environment. But again, these are adaptations, which means that the body is going to make the adjustments until the conditions improve. And if conditions never improve, then people will continue to get weaker because the body will have to make the adjustments in order for you to be able to function in the way that you normally need to function. But ultimately you're not going to be able to continue to function at that level. So I want you to keep that in mind in the context of everything we discussed in the video that I did yesterday, because it is important for you not to panic, but then for you to also not assume that you're dying or, that there's nothing that you can do about it. Trust your body and do what your body is telling you. And if your body is telling you, I need to rest, then you need to rest. And when it is finished making the repairs or the adaptations, you'll feel better and you'll be able to go back to doing whatever it is. If you start weighing yourself down with medications and things like that, in order to force your body to do things that it needs to relax from while it is making the repairs or doing the adaptations, then you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage, and you will not have the kind of immunity that you need to continue to function. The best example I can give for that is that this morning, my kidney was really bothering me, and it was as if it was saying, listen, I know you've been drinking from the filtered water, which I do because my son drinks it, and I want to stay aware of any changes in the water quality that might affect him. But my kidney's saying, but right now, resources are being diverted in other places and I need to catch up. And so I said, okay, so I didn't drink coffee this morning, and I made soup, and I'm drinking bottled water instead of the filtered water to give my kidney an opportunity to catch up. And already it's feeling better, but you can tell from my voice the past couple of days that, I'm still sort of working towards that. So that is the way you have to think about it. But you're not going to get there if you won't even trust your own body. Does that make sense to anybody? Now let's move on. We're now at Chapter 4, Section 1.5, Citizens' Rights and Responsibilities. The main idea: citizens in the United States and Canada enjoy many rights and also have certain responsibilities. The governments of the United States and Canada share many similarities, including that they are on the same continent. Leaders are elected by voters, which is partially true. Government power is shared by the national government and smaller units, states in the United States, and provinces in Canada. Laws are made by a legislative body. Perhaps most importantly, all citizens in these countries have rights and responsibilities. Both governments consist of three branches: the executive, the legislative, and judicial, each with specific powers. The legislative or lawmaking branches are the U.S. Congress and the Canadian Parliament. In the United States, the head of the executive branch is the president elected by the people. They do not tell you what the responsibility of the president is here, do they? In Canada, by contrast, the chief executive is the prime minister, who is chosen by the party with the most seats in parliament. Rights and responsibilities. In both countries, all citizens enjoy basic rights such as the right to citizenship, equality, and fair treatment. But they still have not told you about the judicial branch, whose job it is to interpret the laws so that they are fair and so that people are held fully and appropriately accountable for violations of the law. There are three branches of government, but this is what they want our children to learn in 2017 when this book was published. People become citizens by being born in the country or by naturalization, the process that someone born in another country follows to become a citizen. The Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and Canada's Charter of Rights guarantee basic freedoms. Along these are freedom of speech and religion and certain legal rights. For example, citizens have the right to due process or specific rules that authorities must follow. Let me read that again. Citizens have the right to due process or specific rules that authorities must follow. Canada's charter also identifies two official languages, English and French. Citizens in Canada have the right to be educated in either one. The citizens of the United States and Canada enjoy a great deal of freedom. They can live where they wish and speak their own languages. A great deal of freedom. They can live where they wish and speak their own languages. They can express their opinions freely and practice any religion they choose. They can express their opinions freely and practice any religion they choose. What kind of deal of freedom is this? They can gather together and speak out against their government. Many people who live in these two countries immigrated from countries that did not allow these basic freedoms. I pause here to ask, why did the countries those people immigrated from not allow them the same basic freedoms they found in the United States and Canada? What kind of freedoms did they have? If none, why not? At a minimum, they were free to leave. In both countries, citizens with rights also have responsibilities. The right to vote brings with it the responsibility to cast a vote fairly through formal elections. Legal rights bring about the responsibility to obey laws and to serve on a jury, which is a group of fellow citizens who listen to both sides of a legal matter and decide whether laws were broken, which is challenging to do if you don't understand the judicial process and how laws are made, and then how they are enforced. Some responsibilities are not identified in any document, but are just as important as those required by law. For example, citizens are expected to treat each other fairly. The United States and Canada are home to a wide variety of races, religions. For example, citizens are expected to treat each other fairly. What does that mean? How do you apply such a vague interpretation of how laws should be followed when you don't have an understanding for how laws are made? The United States and Canada are home to a wide variety of races, religions, and customs. Citizens in diverse societies like these have the responsibility to accept one another's differences. So, what are the responsibilities of citizens? Is to vote, obey laws that have been made by who knows who for who knows what purpose, and to serve on a jury where you have the responsibility of convicting people based on the instructions they give you about the laws and how they should be enforced. Your other responsibility is to treat each other fairly and to accept another person's differences. It sounds very liberal. Is it working? Before you move on, make inferences. Why is responsibility an important part of having rights and freedoms? And the answer is because you must have accountability, self-accountability ideally, but if not, the accountability of the people around you, all of whom have agreed to work towards the same goals. That's my answer today. What is your answer?